What's happening? What's happening? Good evening, people. How are we? Welcome to the stream. How's everybody's Sunday evening going? I see everybody was waiting for this one. It's because Alessio's coming on in it. How are we, George? Will? Daniel? How are we all? What's happening? So like I say, we'll do it normally, how we go through stuff. We'll go through everything for the market news from last week and this week, and obviously everything that's going on. And then Alessio's going to be joining us about 20 past. How's everybody's Sundays and evenings? How you doing, Alex? Welcome to the stream, mate. Hope everybody's got their brew and that ready. So for anybody that is new, obviously we've got the One Big Journey ebook. It's got everything that you can need in here, links for everything that's needed. So obviously you can get that in the description. It's free. It's very helpful for people if you're new or experienced. How are we, Rob? Tom, how are we? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I had a nice one today as well. Happy weekend, mate. It's good. It's happy days. Great for Christmas anyway. It's just paid for Christmas and some. So yeah, happy days. Right, then let's get into it. So this week it's been a bit packed. So we've got a lot going on. Got a lot going on next week as well. So it's good to see. So first things first, let's put it over onto the other tab. Start seeing what's going on over there. I want to start off by looking at Bitcoin, everything that was happening on that side of the front. So let's pull that up. Bitcoin obviously started to do a nice upwards momentum. It's back up to $91,000. How are we, Adam? Welcome to stream, mate. So it's doing well. Nice, especially. I mean, it did reach highs of 92, but it's nice to see it back from down in the low 80s of last week. I think obviously the market in December is going to be a massively determined on what happens with Bitcoin and stuff like that. So it's definitely one to as a market factor to watch going into December. And that's something I'm definitely going to be watching. See if the Christmas rally is still happening. Good evening, Adam. How are we doing? How are you, mate? Everybody, welcome, welcome. Everybody's still rolling in. We've got loads of people here tonight, 30 from the off bounce. That's good to see. It's good to see. Right, so let's get into it. So one of the first things we've seen, JP Morgan sets long-term Bitcoin target 240,000 a coin. It's good to see. The forecast comes as Bitcoin has stabilized around 87,000 in late November after tumbling from its October's peak of 126,000. Yeah, JP Morgan bullish on Bitcoin. I think the pullback was a bit crazy on Bitcoin, but it's good. It's good. Nice one, mate. I appreciate that. Appreciate it. So yeah, Bitcoin looks like JP Morgan are very bullish on that, so that's good to see. Another thing that I've seen this week, so one of the things that I pulled in, zooming on this, and some of these market caps are the largest US stocks versus the start of the year versus today. Nvidia's gone from 3.3 trillion to 4.3 trillion this year. That's crazy growth. Apple up nearly $500 billion as well. Google up by 1.5 trillion. Microsoft up $500 billion. Amazon 0.2 trillion. That's not even that bad if people look at that and say Broadcom, Meta, Tesla, Berkshire, and EY Lilly. So all companies absolutely smashing it this year. So yeah, we've seen a bit of a pullback, but was it really the end of the world? Absolutely not. So that's good to see. Some good stuff there. One of these things that's very interesting is Nvidia's quarterly revenue since the launch of ChatGPT. So since the launch of ChatGPT alongside Nvidia, just every single quarter, 6 billion, 7 billion, 13 billion, 18 billion, 22 billion. Like, that's phenomenal numbers, man, from a company. And that's only since the launch of ChatGPT in 2022. Absolutely wild stuff to see. So yeah, 3 years ago, ChatGPT was announced. Since then, so a bit of a fame. Since then, S&P 500 has added 24 trillion or 2,900 points. That's 22 billion per day for 1,096 days straight. When you fathom that in and you take that in, because it's easy being an investor and skipping over that and not really soaking all that in, but 22 billion on average per day for nearly 1,100 days straight. That's crazy. But yeah, happy days. We don't need Grok to explain his post. All right, thank you. So yeah, so December is historically a strong month for stocks, and this is why I'll be keeping a close eye on Bitcoin. Hi, Leo, mate. Welcome to the stream. Nice to see you checking in, mate. It's nice to see that. So yeah, as I was saying, December is historically a strong month for stocks. So since 1928, the S&P 500 has risen 73.2% at the time in December. So that's food for thought, something definitely to take in. Again, like I was saying, I'll be tracking Bitcoin to see how that'll be moving in December and if it starts coming back down next week. I mean, this weekend was sort of significant for it as well. And seeing the fact that it's stabilized and going back up is definitely good to see. Something that is to take in. But 73.2% of the time, December is good. That's what we like to see, what we like to see. Now, one thing I did see though, because obviously double-edged sword, you have to the long dated puts versus credit protection. So the cost of a 5-year put option protection against at least 55% drop in the S&P 500 has risen to 46 basis points, the highest since April sell-off. So as much as the market is a lot of bullish and we're seeing good stuff and there's a lot of good things in there, there's a lot of people that are still very bearish and buying their protection, which we haven't seen since April. Now, I've seen a few people commenting saying that it's April type of territory. We are nowhere near what was happening in April. So yeah, that's something that you have to be careful of. One of the things that we're going to have to show here, I apologize in advance, Will, is here are the updated worst performing S&P 500 stocks so far in 2025. So we've got the trade desk there with minus 66%. I know Will was invested in that, so he'll forever have that by his name. Lululemon down by 51%, nearly 52. Chipotle down by 42%. FactSet down by another 42%. So yeah, some big S&P 500 companies that are lacking as well. So when we're taking to the facts of the growth potential of what's actually been happening with the S&P 500, and we're nearly at all-time highs and being at all-time highs, a lot of the companies are lacking. This is why people do say it's very concentrated, and which it is. But those companies are really holding up the top end of the economy in the S&P 500. So it'd be interesting, which we'll touch on soon, about the rebalance on Friday, which some of these companies might be getting pulled out and who's going to go in. And that'll be an interesting thing to see for sure. So this one was a good one for my eyes that I did share over on Trading 212. So the growth stocks, the top 2025 performers. IREN was up, obviously, I know just in a bit of pullback. So this was as of November 29th, so still there. IREN was up nearly 400% this year. Open Door up nearly 400% as well. Now, the one, obviously, you got Hood in here, which being classed as the growth stock. That's what we love to see. Nebius up nearly 250%. Now, this one was really one that caught a lot of our eyes. A lot of the people in the server, a lot of the people that follow my channel on this is a very big holding of theirs, up nearly 210% this year. So yeah, like I say, we've seen a bit of a pullback from the 11 range, but I know everyone's accumulating now and from the TA, and obviously Alessio's joining us soon. He'll go over it and what M5 and what we can see that we've got a lot more growth to come for Ondas, and 26 is going to be a huge year. So seeing that it's growing 209% in 2025 and there's still a lot more to go. So Jordan seems a good point if the logo is an O or similar. that's a fair bit of DD there, mate. Yeah. So you have to but AST, nice to see that there as well, up by 166%. I know it was up nearly 100, but I did say this in the Discord as well, running well too hot, well too soon. Phenomenal stock, but 2028 hold, couple of years. So I sold a couple of my shares when it hit 100, but it's started coming back down now to a fair value, as some might say. And I'll be buying some more of that back up, but it was running too hot for a bit. So definitely something to take into consideration. Now, when we have a bit of consumer confidence problems that people say, and there's a lot of stuff that go there. The US Black Friday sales hit record high. US online Black Friday sales reached a record of 11.8 billion, up 9.1% from last year, according to Adobe Analytics. Adobe expects Americans to spend 5.5 billion on Saturday and 5.9 billion on Sunday. Salesforce reported 18 billion in total Black Friday spending, with luxury apparel and accessories among the top sellers. So yeah, that looks good for Q4 GDP, etc., and stuff like that, and good for a lot of companies, a lot of online retailers, a lot of retail stocks. But that's good numbers, and if you're holding some of those, you're gonna be looking. So Laz has just said, what's your price target for Ondas? Mine personally is 20, mate. I'll be holding probably along past that as well. But we had between 8 and 10 for the end of this year when we all started picking it up earlier in the year. And well, we're in that range now, so we did pretty well on calling that. And we all have got similar type of ranges, about 20. A few of the other lads think 30, 40, and a lot further than that as well. But Ondas is one that's going to be a great stock in 26 for sure. So On to the next one. So another one thing that was it, institutional investors. So this isn't retail, this is institutions. Were bought the dip last week. US equities saw net flows of 1.6 billion last week, a significant reversal from the net outflows of minus 800 million in the prior week. The shift was driven by a near record 4.8 billion inflows into ETFs. So it looks like a lot of institutions are buying into the safer bets. So they're putting their money into ETFs instead of more individual stocks. But yeah, it's nice to see that if institutions are buying up, normally means we hit the bottom and we're on our way back up for sure. Um, Alternative, but some of the jobs layoffs that we've seen last week or well came in. A job cuts tracked by Macro Edge jumped plus 70,000 month on month in October to 154,000, the highest in at least 2 years. So monthly job cuts have now exceeded 100,000 for the fifth time this year. So that's something to keep food for thought as well. But that's where the rate cuts come. True boy, hey Jay, how much do you think Ondas will reach in the next 12 months? Think of investing a large amount. So again, I will never sell people into invest. Obviously, you have to do your own due diligence on that. But we see going, like I say, just our PTs to 20 plus and stuff like that. So we've got a lot of faith in it, but that's our own estimate. So I definitely do your own due diligence. But from the Q3 earnings that they just put out, it was phenomenal and the growth looks amazing. So yeah, you got a lot of growth in there from what they're projecting. On to what JP Morgan also said. So JP Morgan just said it now expects Jerome Powell and the Fed to cut rates by 0.25 bits in December. There's an 84% chance of that now, which obviously we'll touch back on in a little bit. So that's massive as well. So obviously everybody's getting a bit more bullish towards rate cuts, and that's why we've seen the market start pushing back up last week. And in other news, so some of the more serious news, I guess. So we got Putin will agree Trump's Ukraine peace plan can be used as a basis for future agreements. Now, I have just seen another one on this, which was that we'll pull that up now. That there was another touching basis on Ukraine, accepting that also. So let's have a look where that is bookmarks. There we go. So Rubio says meeting with Ukrainians was very productive. There's more work to be done, but he'll be in touch to verify in the varying degrees with the Russian side. So yeah, that's good to see. Yeah, as Jordan just said there, if you ain't in the Discord is the QR code or it is in the description. Got over 175 people following on that. We actually did a share price count last week, and yeah, it was quite surprising. We own like nearly 1% of the float in the server alone, which is crazy to say. But yeah, that's good. So Trump, obviously, this week as well, to all airlines, pilots, drug dealers, and human traffickers, please consider the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela to be closed in its entirety. So Trump doing Trump-like things. He's also said that he will keep the stock market at all-time highs and cause the market hot with a big boost for 401ks. No one actually likes to see the market being called hot, but it depends on what terms you're taking it in. So yeah, definitely one to take in. Treasury Secretary Bassett says he's very confident the US economy will boom in 26. I think a lot of people are bullish for 26. A lot of companies are projecting good growth still. So it's looking very solid for 2026 if you're a stock investor, which is good to see. Now, obviously, going into the news for this week. So let's touch on that real quick. So the stocks that may join the S&P 500, we have actually, if you have a look on Friday, so we've got some of the data, which we'll touch on in a minute. We have got the rebalance on Friday in December the 5th. So you've got the S&P rebalance. Now the question is who actually gets in. I know a lot of people are bullish for SoFi to get in. So it'll be very interesting to see if they do. Sorry, last week I let my tea get cold. So yeah, there's obviously a couple of companies that have been taken out. So if people don't know, for a company to qualify for the S&P 500, I think it was updated in July, and it's 22 billion market cap now, and you have to be positive on EBITDA for 4 consecutive quarters, which so far has been doing that for a long time. So yeah, some big names in there. Some a big interesting to see who gets taken out for SoFi if they do make it in. I know a lot of people have been waiting for SoFi to come in, but we've got a lot of companies here that are underperforming. So who gets pulled out, who gets put in, I guess we're going to find out. So obviously going into next week as well so let's show the Discord. So anybody that doesn't know, we're going to show the Discord now. Me and Will take a lot of this basically into our own accumulation of what we do. But every week we put the data into the Discord chat. And as you'll see here, so let's share that. Just loading it up. So in the Discord server, you'll see everything that we've got here, everything that gets announced. And next week we've got earnings. We've got some big earnings next week. Let's pull this up. So we've got Salesforce, Snowflake, got Macy's, got some real big people reporting earnings. So it'll be post market. It's normally when market closes, it gets announced, and then obviously it takes effect 2 weeks after. True Boy. So if you are in there, True Boy, just message Jordan. He'll sort it out for you. So yeah, some big companies reporting earnings next week. So it's very interesting. Then obviously we've got some of the data again as well. So we've got the Jolts job opening data. You've got some of the PC inflation data, jobless claims data. So a lot of data is coming into the market this week, and it's actually the last month of 2025. So interesting times ahead. On top of that, like I say, so here's the server. Obviously, when we're talking about the Ondash channel, we've got the Ondash channel there. It's very active. On weekends, it does tend to slow down, but that is just the way it is on the weekends. So one thing I wanted to show some people is because a few people were asking. So I actually had, and then what time are we on? Because Alessio, are we ready in a minute? That's great. So we'll do a little quick 2-minute promo on this. So what I'm going to do is show everybody this real quick. So this is a website that many people use all the time. So let's just show you all this real quick. So on Sunday nights and most days, everybody will be looking at stock futures. And obviously, I hate that this is in white, by the way. I wish it was in black. But so they've been kindly enough to partnership with me. And obviously, they've given me the Investing Pro account and what I hold and stuff like this. Now, this website is actually really, really good, to be honest. It's in the description. It's 60% off at the moment, and you get an additional 15% with my link. And yeah, it's really good. Shows you everything about the stocks if they're undervalued, their bargains from Investing Pros, from Analyst Pros point of view. You've got the Pro Picks AI as well, which I think's class one. So you can see what Buffett holds. You can literally see what Arco owns and everything. So you can get ideas. So let's say you want to have a look at what Nancy Pelosi's holding. You go to ARC, start looking at all the stocks. You can see what they sell when they buy it directly from the SEC filings. Yeah, it's fantastic. Look, you can see everything that they've bought and sold. They've also got this Ask One AI as well. So you got this stuff here. I was asking it about the charts the other day for on das, and like I say, it read the charts and starts giving you like where the shorts are, where it's bearish, where it's risky, what patterns to look out for. Now I'm not a trader. I'm learning how to read charts better and better as we go along, and that's what Alessio is going to be good at, and he's going to be on in a minute. But yeah, absolutely phenomenal software. It's got, like I say, it's got ideas for you. I mean, a screener. I mean, I've never had a screener, so it's nice to actually have something to look at. So this is good. But yeah, I think we are ready. So what we'll do is, without further ado, we'll pull Alessio into here. So let me just get him into, pull him in. Let's pull this off because it's going to be in his way. There we go. Alessio, are you there, mate?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
How are you, my mate? You're right.
Yeah, all good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. Good. Right, let's remove my screen real quick and then we'll go from there. So, for people who don't know who you are, mate, let them know. Obviously, a few of us know you are, but give them a brief description. Who are you? What is it you do? Let them know.
Sorry, mate, I cut out then, but I did catch the end of it. Yeah, so I'm Alessio. I'm a 26-year-old young bloke who was slightly confused leaving college and stuff. It wasn't really for me. I have been trading now maybe 6 years. I've been charting for about 9 or 10. And I was the same as anyone else. When you come out of school, it wasn't really for me. And I got sort of drawn into the whole trader lifestyle. You see all the money, you get drawn in. And I realized that there was a lot of scams around it, but I thought maybe there's some truth to it. So I did some digging and here we are. So I've been looking into charts, like I say, nearly 9-10 years. And I'm just going to clear up a quick question I get asked a lot, which is where did I learn? And it's not so much I had a specific place I learned. It kind of just happened over time. And it's the same with anything. I think just spending time.
Oh, you there, Alessio? You just cut out, mate. You still there? I think I lost him a sec, so I'll put him back in a sec. That's not a problem. So let me see where he is. We'll just drop him a message real quick, see what's happening. He's got all that money and he's got Tesco Signal, isn't he? So let's have a look. Let's have a look. Let's put him back in. Alessio, are you there, mate?
Hello.
There we go. I can hear you again now, mate. You're back.
Sorry, mate, I live in the middle of the forest, so the signal around here is rubbish. I don't know where you guys head up to, but yeah. Anyway, I've been doing this quite a while now. I've been taking a lot more risk. I'm quite a high risk trader. I think it comes partly with the confidence I have in my own ability. Not that I'm the best, and not that I'm always right. I like to think that I'm right quite a lot, but I think it's important that we understand the possibilities both ways, bullish and bearish, and which way it can go. An insight to where I'm at, I'm a 26-year-old lad. I'm now playing with over 7 figures, and I think that's going to increase quite quickly now. I've started my ISA for my son. He's only 1 year old. He's now playing with upwards of over 30,000, and that's mostly come from gains. I mean, we've started with like £2,000-3,000, and I've traded my way up there in the year that he's been alive. So
I was just about to say, I think it's important to touch on that. So this beginning of this year, what did you start with, and what did your son's ISA start with?
Yeah, the beginning of this year, my son's ISA was sitting just over a few thousand. I haven't put many contributions in. Most of it's come from gains. Myself, I can't remember really. I think the start of this year I was sitting around 200,000, something like that.
I know, 7 figures.
And yeah, now we're sitting at, I think it's sitting around 1.2 million at the moment. It fluctuates quite quickly, and I think it's gonna. I'm quite confident it's going to move quite quickly now with the progression of Ondas. I'm quite a bullish Ondas investor, as most others are. But yeah, no, the compounding is real, and I think the compounding is crazy. And I think it's important for anyone who gets to a certain point to not get drawn into all the shiny things until you get to a point where it's a very small percentage of what you're playing with. And a good thing that really clicked for me was when I was in a stock back in the day, which was EHang, which I actually still am in terms of options, is the stock moved X amount in a week, and I think I made 15,000-20,000 pounds on it, and I thought that was great and everything. And I had a friend on Discord, and he actually made in that same week, I think it was about just over £2 million. And I realized, well, it was dollars for him, but I realized that we didn't do anything differently. It was purely just the fact that he had more money, and the game is still the game. It's still, you're playing the same thing. It's just the amount of money you have. It's all percentage game. Everything in this game is a percentage. And I think it's very important people realize that and refrain from buying shiny things. I'm now at a point where I like to sort of pull a bit of money out here and there, treat myself a little bit, and it makes almost no difference to me. But, on the way up, it's been very tempting, and I think it's a battle that everyone's going to have to face. But I'm waffling now anyway, because you guys wanted to hear about trading. But
no, it's good, man. People want to know this, though, because it's nice to understand who you are.
I think it's very important that the mindset is, you have to establish your own mindset first. And I truly believe that most people couldn't even be rich. So I don't think most people could even succeed in this game purely because they have a spending habit. And, have you ever seen people get a large sum of inheritance or anything like that, and they have no idea of how the emotion of money works, and you watch them waste it quite quickly? And that's the same with all of us. We're all wired exactly the same. I think in this game, you need to learn how to remove that and understand that it is. And I've seen a lot of you guys now who are doing very well come to terms with it's just numbers on a screen, which it is. And you sort of desensitize to it. And I think it's important that I think everyone needs to do that when they're playing this game, because I'm going to touch on it more a little bit later on, but the psychology and the emotion behind trading is actually more important, I believe, than the technical analysis. I think the technical analysis will guide the price to where you think it's going to go. But, that doesn't really mean anything if you haven't got the ability to hold a trade and remember why you took that trade. And that's very important.
And I think, like I say, I totally agree with that, because you see a lot of people buy into stocks and they'll go, well, I'm holding for 5 years, but then Monday it will go down and they're panicking like it's the end of the world.
Yeah. There's a lot of lessons in that, which is always good. And, we've all been there.
Mm-hmm.
in terms of trading, then I'm going to touch on psychology before I actually get into the technical analysis. Is people need to realize that there are people hired here by market makers who have serious degrees and serious ability in understanding human psychology. And it is structured in a way that it is trying to take as much money from you as possible to feed them. And we are playing on their market. And, you know, maybe I'm speculating here, and whether you agree with me or not, I truly believe we are playing on their market. It's their game. They're going to run it how they want to run it. And if we know what we're doing and we can understand that, I think we can then take a piece of the pie. And they do hire people who are very highly educated in human psychology to play on your emotions. Now, I don't know if you've ever taken trades and you've sort of rushed into it and the price carries on going up, and then all of a sudden it reverts and you go in the red and you panic and then you sell it. And then as soon as you sell it, it goes back up again, and vice versa. And, you know, we've all been there. It's designed to do that. It's designed to play on your mind. And I think this is also partly why they say time in the market beats timing the market. Now, I think that's true mostly, and I think that's purely because then you mostly eliminate the human factor of your own psychology and trying to pull a trade too early. However, I think you can time trades, and that's what I do. I'm a little bit stuck at the moment because I like Ondas a lot. I'm always eyeing up other companies to try and switch because, again, I believe it's a numbers compounding game, and if I can get a good pump on one stock and then move that to another, then I think I can do very well, which I have been. So yeah, I think it's very important that you guys drill in the psychology before you go any further, before you realize that you can get to the big numbers, because there are so many walls you will come across on the way there that you have to get through, whether that's personal or through the market. You need to understand them and persevere. You know, the game is slow at the start. Like I said, when I made 20,000 in a week, you know, that's okay, that's quick. But, you know, there's someone else who made £200 in the same week, and they're going to be comparing themselves, and they might want to start taking higher risk or things like that, or trying to rush in or FOMO because they want to get to the big numbers. Now, we've all been there. It's a slow process, and you've just got to persevere.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's like you say, I think the hardest thing is what they always say is the hardest milestone is £100,000. And once you get to that milestone, it does become, and obviously I'm at that milestone now, and it does become, because 1% is a massive difference now, instead of where 1% when you've got a couple £100 in. But it comes from being locked in, and like you say, understanding what you're in, understanding what you hold, having the right mindset, and not carrying emotions with it. Because Ondas, we've all seen Ondas go from 89 cents a share up until 11 and then back down to 4.5 nearly. So and a lot of people, I don't think hardly any of us, or if anybody, actually sold any on a panic sell. People took money off the table at 11, and I know yourself took money off the table as well. But it's a case of that's because that's strategic, not emotional.
Exactly. Yeah. And okay, I'm going to share my screen now and show you some charts, but I want everyone who's watching this, whether you're live or watching it on the pre-recorded video, to understand that everything I'm doing, I'm in the back of my mind, I'm remembering that there's psychology involved in this, and that's the driving.
Do you want to share your screen, mate, and I'll load it up for you?
Yeah.
I'll see it pop up in the bottom in a minute. There we go. There you go. You're in there, mate.
Can you see my chart?
Yeah. You've got the screen now, so you're on.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'm a little bit slow with this because I'm on a different computer, so please bear with me. But I think maybe it's a good thing because I move quite quickly, you see. So
okay.
Now, when you first look at this screen, you're probably going to be a little bit blown away because there's a few things going on. Not nearly as much as M5, but I don't keep these things on here very often. I use them as tools. And where I say it's all psychology, you must understand first that each one of these candles, in the history of it, there was so much psychology involved. Now, this is going to move on whichever way you think, and we're going to forget about all the emotion that we saw in the Discord here. And it's very important to remember how you felt when this was dropping, because that psychology is here, it's everywhere you see. And you need to remember this as you go through. So with Ondas, let me remove some of the things, and I'm going to start from the beginning, is my trading style, and I don't believe that there's any right or wrong trading style, is I like to keep things very simple. And I think if you clutter it too much, you're going to overthink, and you might put indicators on and they go against what your plan is, and it's going to throw you off. Now, for me, my plan, I like to find basic levels of liquidity, liquidity being where the money's waiting, where the buy orders and sell orders are, and drawing zones, really. Now, you probably watch videos of support and resistance, and you'll see my lines here are support and resistance. Now, they're not perfect. You're never going to get them perfect. And in certain times, there are levels of liquidity like this zone I've drawn in these yellow dashed lines. Now, the reason I've done that is because there's no specific exact point that these are all touching. As you can see, we're wicking here. It's wicking at the top. It's never perfect. So I try and get it as tight as possible, but it's more of a zone, and you'll see how it behaves when it comes into this zone. So you see it comes in, it bounces out, comes in, it touch the top of the zone, and again. So that's based on previous information. So I'll draw that on, and you'll see it behaves the same way here. So now we're sort of playing within this zone again. And again, this might be respected again in the future, who knows, but it's a key level. And, you know, there are other key levels, so ignore this yellow line for now. You know, there's quite a heavy line here, is a support line. It was quite easy to determine because you can see where the wicks are and how it behaves, like here. And again, also there's another strong level here. So I put these as dark lines because they're very important and well respected. So the way I trade is I will find certain levels, certain highs like this. Again, this isn't perfect. You can't, where are you going to put your line? Because there's so many different tops. It's a bit of a mess. So you need to sort of work out, like, here's quite a hard level. There are also gaps, which I'll get onto in a bit. So first off, I will find where those levels are, because when you look at a blank chart, there's nothing. So if we were to look at this, you can see right here along my dashed line, you know, that looks like a pretty good support if you ask me. We're sort of playing around here and here. And this, when it goes sideways for a long period of time like this, that's accumulation. And it's very frustrating if you're in the trade here, because not a lot happens for quite a long period of time. But you need to understand that when you're playing with larger amounts of money, it's not easy to get in and out of a stock. And again, you have to accumulate over a period of time, which is what institutions do. And again, you can see here some accumulation and across here as well. And you can see these wicks here, they all play around this certain area. Now, I truly believe it's all calculated, and sometimes it can be irrational. You see short squeezes and they just go crazy. And I think that's where the market makers can sometimes lose their control. But for this kind of trade, the way I trade is I'll find those levels, and I like to look for a trend break. So if we put this back on, you'll see my yellow line here coming down. I drew this about here at this point in time, somewhere around here when we were at 0.8. Brad mentioned it to me, and I looked at it from a trade to start with, and I drew this. I saw this line. I mean, this isn't perfect here, but I saw a touch here, you know, a touch here, and I figured, well, I'm going to draw my line and I'm going to wait and see. And I didn't take this trade at 0.7 when Brad mentioned it to me. I was actually purely waiting to see if we come up towards this line, which we did. So I started loading here at sort of 155 as we started to approach. And you'll normally see with a trade like this, I find that it sort of rejects off and then it will go. But I'm not going to trade purely based on that. I'm looking for certain other factors to sort of confirm that for me. So what I'm looking for, if I scroll in here, it's a bit slow on this computer. You will see here at the bottom, and I think this is a very important indicator for anybody. This is volume. And there's no hiding volume when institutions and people are loading up on a company. It's clearly visible. And you can see from this sort of period of time here, as we started approaching where my line was, I could see the volume was starting to increase. So that's another factor for me. As you can see, there's ignore this. I don't know why this is coming up. It's a bit annoying, but you can see here we had quite a jump. I mean, that's almost double, if not more. And it sort of held. So I realized volume was coming in. I use these two indicators on everything I do. An SMA 200, it's a simple moving average. And the 200 means over the last 200 wicks. And an EMA, which is an exponential moving average of 50, which is the last 50 candles.
Just a quick one, Alessio. On the SMA 200, that's because you trade on a daily chart, don't you?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Right?
So that's based on the last 200 candles, and I will always trade off of the daily. So I truly find that the higher the time frame you go on, the more respected the chart is. And if I drop sort of down to an hour time frame and start drawing lines, the chart won't respect it for very long. Then it's not a normally you should start on a higher time frame and work back. So I'd start on a 1 day, maybe a 4 hour, drop down to I don't really go much lower, but maybe to a 4 hour. And I like to then find what I'm looking for and just wait. I don't sit on the 1 hour and draw lines and go, wow. Maybe if you're looking to scalp a better entry, then it's a good idea. But I'm taking a trade and I'm sitting on it. So for instance, then I also saw the volume was increasing. And right here, we have something called a golden cross. Now, this is where that EMA and SMA I was on about, they start to cross paths here. And you'll normally see, if you look through different charts with those two indicators, you normally get quite an impulsive move after that. So I had this trend line drawn. It came up towards my trend line, which I'm looking for, which was good. The volume increased, which is good. It means there's interest. And I saw that this EMA here was starting to pull up towards the SMA, and I realized they were about to cross. So I was taking the trade. I was sort of loading in around here, the 150s, 155s. And again, then we touched this line and whatever, and off we went. Now, you can see how it reacted on these lines, and again up here. Now, ignore this golden line for now. I'll get to that in a minute. And then we came all the way up, because you normally get quite a big explosion when you cross that line, is you're looking to the left. Remember this when you're trading. You're always looking to the left, because that's where your history is, and history likes to repeat itself. So, you know, I had this zone drawn already before we even came here, and I was expecting price to sort of come up here to this high, you know, to here, to this high, which it kind of played around here. I was looking at this high, and actually, this is a very good example of it. I think it's truly calculated. Is if you look right there, I can't get my mouse perfect, but it's 1172, the true reading on that, with this previous wick here, and it was perfect. And then there was a big rejection straight afterwards. Now, I did start selling. I started selling from here, I'll be honest. I'm a trader. I'm also an investor, and I really only trade my investments. So I'm always prepared to hold on long term if it doesn't go to plan. And for me, that works quite well. I've never selling
Alessio,
from here. I think it was the high eights from the top of this zone here. All good?
Yeah, you're good now. Yeah, you're good.
And I sold the rest up here, actually. I did sell all of the last of my shares. I sold the last 30,000 shares at 1170, which was 0.02 off of the top, which was quite good. And, you know, I started loading in again from, I think it was about 8 all the way down to...
Alessio, just a quick one so you can touch on this so people understand it. Can you explain what you mean when you trade your investments, just so the other guys understand what you mean?
Yeah. So I don't really trade companies that I don't care about. I will find companies, I will look into them, I will like them, I will find a trade within them. And before I take that trade, I am prepared to sit on that trade for a long period of time, because I truly believe in the company. I like the company. And it then allows, it also partly removes the emotion of it, because like Hondas, this is a good company. This is going to do very well in the long term. If I get in slightly too high, or I muck up my calculation, it doesn't matter, because I can just hold it and it's going to do well for me. Now, okay, it's not going to be perfect, but I don't have to worry about my trade going wrong, so to say, because I have conviction in this company. And if it goes wrong, it's for more reasons than just my TA. So that's what I mean. So yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Perfect. So then obviously we hit the 1172. And the reason my yellow line is here, now I'm going to touch on this. This is beyond beginner, but you guys should look into it, because I truly believe the Fibonacci is a very good tool that everyone should use. And I think you should use this on many charts and see. The way this works is you go from a swing low, so a previous swing low here. So my mouse again isn't perfect. I'm not on a mouse mat, somewhere around here. And I'm looking for this top here. So after it started rejecting, I would pull this up to see if it could have gone higher, and I could have been wrong, but I was testing it from here anyway. And I put that right on the top. And as you can see, and now let me give you some context first. The 0.618 is it's called the golden zone because it's the most respected rebound zone there is on a Fibonacci. Now, when you come to this level, statistically, there's a good chance you see a rebound. And if you do, it's good confirmation. So I had this in the back of my mind. And again, this is quite a messy instrument, so I don't like it on my chart. I drew the line here, and you can see, I mean, it wasn't perfect. There are spreads and stuff, and the algorithms, they don't get it all perfectly. It's very difficult when you have hundreds of millions of shares being traded to get it just right. So I always take the trade slightly early. So I was loading this at 510, 520. So I'm not going to try and get it perfectly because look, if I set my buys at 488, I would have missed it. So yeah, I'm pretty grateful I got it. I loaded back up pretty much all of my shares here. I loaded some at 8, but I think I loaded another 120,000 shares or something, literally 510, 520, purely based on that. And it's a game of just waiting. Now, don't get me wrong, with a company this good, and this is where I can't touch on emotion enough. A company this good, you FOMO hits you hard. You see news coming out every day. You think, oh, well, why is the stock going down when the news is so good? And this is where, if you're trying to trade, you need to understand that this is where it gets very difficult, is to be able to sit on your hands and wait for something like this. When you love the company, it's so difficult. You love the company so much and it's doing so well, and you don't understand why it's pulling back. I mean, I do because I believe in algorithms on this stuff, but it doesn't really make sense in a fundamental point of view. And I believe that fundamentals help, but I think most of the charts are truly controlled by the technicals. So we're loading this back up, and again, you can see now it's coming back to play within this liquidity zone. Now, what happens here, I don't know. You typically see some consolidation where it sort of sits and there's accumulation, which we'll probably see. We might not. It depends how quickly this moves. But I was expecting some sort of movement here. As you can see, we've come up, rejected it, come up, tested it again, broken through it. Now, this is another important psychology point in trading that you need to understand is this, and I was making sure, I was saying this in the Discord, you need to be careful of things called fake outs. And a fake out is when you see it come up to a zone like this. This is a very good example of a fake out. It will run and people will think, oh, I need to get in. It's going. It's broken that zone because other people are looking at this zone too. And the thing it's going, and there's buy orders sitting here. People have orders waiting for this to break and they'll get in. And what the algorithms do is they're playing on psychology. So people are buying here and okay, great. They see a little bit of green and then it's being pulled on them and they will have their stop losses. I don't use a stop loss because I trade investments, so I'm prepared to hold it, but it will hit people's stop losses that they have set slightly lower. And it's just called a fake out. It didn't have any substance to it. This is a little bit different because the candle had a good close up here, quite a strong close. Normally, you'd see a big pull and then a long wick like this for a fake out. So sometimes it's hard to tell. But again, this is why I think if you stay within the company for a long period of time, you're not stuck by all of the short-term movements which are trying to catch people out. And that's why time in the market beats timing the market. I truly believe.
Alessio, just a quick one while you're saying that, because that's important. Will's asked a good question. Will's asking the questions that the people should ask. When you rank, what do you rank number 1 to 3 between obviously TA, fundamental, sentiment? Like before taking a trade, which order do you put those in?
I put the technicals first always. Mm-hmm. I believe the fundamentals are a good driving factor for the technicals. Sentiment, I don't really think about, to be honest. I'll be completely honest with you. I tend to ignore it. I just run off technicals and fundamentals. And actually, that's a very good point you've just reminded me about. Something I've noticed over the years is, for instance, we all know now that they use the news to push a narrative. I'm not going to get political here, but
yeah,
it seems quite obvious in the most recent years that they're using the same here. And it's interesting because every time I've traded this same setup, I always see news coming out around this time, the time I'm expecting it to break out, the time I see volume coming up, my cross, my break. It's interesting. You always see news around here conveniently timed to push the price. Now,
And was that the drone dominance news as well? Was it all that type of stuff?
it was some. I think this was there was some not warrants. I think they had debt at the time or something. And they were clearing. Or
Oh,
there was
convertible notes and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, that's it. Yeah, and that all got cleared, and then some big news came, and it just it was timed very conveniently. Now I can show you this again with some other stocks. I'm just going to quickly show you some. Actually, no, we'll get back to that. So I'm going to show you some other trading setups I've taken.
Show us that, because I know people have been. You've been obviously talking about this. People have spoke about this in the Discord. So this will be another good one to touch on different stocks instead of just Ondas.
Yeah, I'll just show you Surf quickly. So it's another example, and then I'll show you the upcoming one. So again, Surf, here's a bit touchy, but he's a touch here, a touch here, a touch here. And when I had this touch here, I drew my line, just waiting to see. Again, it dropped out, accumulation. Now, you sometimes see like a drop just before the pump because, again, it's psychology. They want you to think, oh, well, this isn't going to work. Because if you're in this trade and you're here and it does that, it plays on your mind and you want to sell because you think, well, this is going bad. And then look what happened. There's just a massive pump and it broke through and ran back. And again, this is all playing on your mind. And if you were like, oh, and then you sold and you're missing out, and then it does this massive pump, the psychology here is going to really toy with you. So I have my same setup, my line here. I waited for it. I saw the drop. I was loading this super low. I mean, I was getting in at between 2 and 180. I think my lowest, somewhere hit about 185. And again, the volume started creeping up. It's very hard to see because it's also low, but it started creeping up. Here you can see the golden cross was coming. So here you can kind of predict it. And again, you got the cross, you get the pump. And it ran straight into this liquidity zone again that I showed you with Ondas. This was drawn before this had happened based on all these wicks here. Again, it's impossible to draw a definite line. Sometimes you can here and here. But, when it's a wicky mess, I like to draw a zone. So, I put it into this zone. I was selling this at a little bit too early, and it wasn't because of my trading ability. It was because Ondas was loading up very nicely at 155 at the same time. And I figured that the reward from catching this from the 8s to Ondas at 155 was worth it to me. So I was selling this high 7s, low 8s. So, and again, it didn't last very long. And then it dropped out. And, from there, whatever. I mean, we took our profit. I still think this company has potential, and now actually would be a good time to reload this. And what's interesting is playing off of my line, that same line I played here for this break. There was a little gap just here, which we'll touch on in a second, and it's actually closed that gap, and it's playing off of my red line. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm not going to trade it again for the time being because there are other good stocks, but yeah. So I'm going to quickly move on to wrap. Again, I hope you can see what I'm seeing here is I've drawn my line. There's a nice wick up here. There's a nice wick here randomly. And we have a long period of accumulation, which you see here. We're starting to come up. There's sort of a drop out here. So again, the emotions, this doesn't look good. And okay, there was a slight cross here, which did give us a pump. I loaded this through options. I've got a lot of options in this when the price was 140 something. So I actually pushed the price myself up quite a lot, and then it continued. So I'm in super early here, about here, 140 something. And I'm expecting this to, at some point, I can never time it just right. I'm not perfect, but I strongly think it will at some point come up and test this line. And I expect to maybe see some rejection and then a breakthrough. Now, you normally see rejection at certain levels, like here we had a rejection. Look how it plays off. Rejection, rejection, rejection. It loves to, these are good zones and everyone's watching them for points to maybe buy, sell, understand that when it comes there, that it's going to bounce probably at some point. So I'm well aware that if we come up here, which I think we will, I'm going to see some kind of rejection. And then I'm expecting, as soon as that line breaks, I'm expecting a nice pump into this zone again that we see here that I've shown you on Ondas. I've shown you on Surf. I can show you on some other stocks I've caught. But yeah,
and I think this stuff's important because when people see you talking about this, obviously people I know obviously because you've got a lot, obviously you're a big portfolio, I know how easy it is for people to just copy trade. But this is why it's so important to understand what you're actually on about and what you're doing, because you've got your zones there. You know where you're joining, you know where you're leaving. You don't have to declare that to anybody. So it's like you say, that's why it's important people know exactly what they're getting into or why they're doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, do you know, I'm not going to be around forever. I like helping people, but I'm always going to be there to tell you to pull the plug on a trade when is the best time. You know, I have a lot of people outside of Discord as well who are listening to me, and it becomes very hard to manage. And it's, you know, this is a skill at the end of the day. It's the same as a job. It's the same as anything else. If you learn this, you know, things may change in the future, but it's a skill. And you know, I'm debating whether to pull out from my current employment next year at some point and just pursue this full time, because it's starting to get hard to go to it's a family business, but go and make money, which is almost completely irrelevant to what I can do here, and maybe go and pursue some things I want to do in life, and have this as a tool to make money, which I think is the goal for all of us at the end of the day. So if you know, you can't always be copying people, because people are always going to have different strategies, and not everyone's going to be right. So if you can find what works for you, you should do pretty well. And
you, like you say, you've just hit the nail on the head there. When I'm investing and I'm posting stuff and you'll post stuff, we could get it totally wrong. We could go the complete opposite way. I mean, we haven't yet, which is great, but it can happen.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's a game of psychology, and that's going to really mess you up.
Oh, are you still there, mate?
But people are going to point the finger at the person. People are going to point the finger at the person. I'm not giving calls deliberately for you to copy. I'm trying to teach people at the same time.
Agreed.
You know, if I'm wrong, it's going to play on your mind, and you're going to blame me instinctively. So it's important you learn this. It's important you can do this when I'm not around. You know, I'm not saying follow my strategy exactly. I just want you to take little bits from this, little bits from M5, little bits from YouTube. You know, that's all I ever did. I only ever took bits from certain different places, put them together, saw what worked. A lot of it's just watching this stuff, just watching every day. I sit on TradingView most of the day, watching these things and just understanding how it's moving, why it's moving. And then you find other things. So I find these lines here. I mean, it's not perfect, but you know, you see how it kind of plays out. But when you have a blank chart, you know, that looks a bit, you're just guessing, right? Because there's nothing there. So you put some lines in, you kind of see how it behaves. And the hardest bit is not knowing, but I have strong conviction this is going to do what I think. The hardest point is just now sitting on my hands and just letting it do what it needs to do. Because there are other things happening. There's noise. There's people telling you you're wrong. And I'm not saying it's going to work, but it's now just sitting on it. You need to remember that it's important as to why I took this trade, to now sit on it and just and stop thinking, well, this stock's run 200%. I mean, there was another one, was it Beyond Meat or something? And
BYND.
That's it. And well done to everyone who caught it. Did I have FOMO? No. I enjoyed watching the pump that people caught, but it would be very easy for someone who had this strategy to see something like that pumping a stupid amount of percentage within a few days to think, oh, well, this isn't working. This is taking too long. Pull out, go in the other one. You're FOMOing at that point. You're probably not going to catch a very good percentage because you're not even doing anything real. You're just gambling. And you'll probably miss something like this. And you'll think, well, what's the point? And I think that's why it's so important. And here, I've found this earlier before the stream. This is a very good point. And I know it's funny, but it's so realistic. It says, I'm an idiot. Why didn't I buy whatever stock at this price? And then it drops.
yeah. And you are right. You hit the nail on the head. I see that happen so much.
Yeah. And it's a massive psychology play. And there was something, yeah. So there's a very important saying that I've heard traders in the past saying, it's so true, is they could put the answer to trading on the front of the Wall Street Journal and most people would still lose money. And it's not because there's a specific answer to how all of this works. It's because it's your own human psychology that will not allow you and not allow most people to win, because it's such a mind game that it all comes down to you at the end of the day.
And while you're on that subject, because psychology is a massive thing for it, do you read much? Is that something you do? Do you read much? Do you train your mindset? Do you look at that type of stuff?
Yeah, I do a lot of reading. I don't read books, but I read stuff online. I read things that try and help me in that respect. I did a lot of understanding of human psychology. I think, you know, as men, to understand women. If you're ever looking for a girlfriend and stuff, I think it's very important that you understand the psychology of how humans behave. And it's the same with anything in business. I'm running a business with 60 plus staff. There's human psychology in that you have to gain respect from staff and from people and from women or men, depends what you choose. But it's the same with anything in life. And I've studied the psychology of trading, the psychology of humans and how we behave. And I think it's very important. I think it's actually more important than the actual lines and stuff itself, because again, I don't use a lot here. There's a few lines here and, a few indicators. This is all part of the chart anyway. I don't use much more than this, really. I might use things like an Ichimoku cloud and stuff, but I don't need to show you that because it's just extra that you don't really need.
And I think that's sometimes as well, keeping it as simple, like seeing everybody's minds work differently, like say psychology. So like looking at how M5 does it, looking how you do it. M5 likes to go a lot more with different lines, but it doesn't matter. There isn't one wrong way or there isn't one right way. It's about what works for you.
Exactly. And I'm going to quickly show you on Ondas now. I'm going to teach you something else on the Fibonacci's, which again, I think is one of the only things really here I use. All of this stuff is just, sure, there might be reasons for it, but again, I think you're going to find it could almost go against what you're looking at because there's so many different options. Is this extension. Now, let me give you some background on this. The fib will show you where you could get a retracement to, as we saw a retracement here. The fib extension is to show you the targets in the unknown, or well, even the known. But you see what's happening here. This is a common pattern I truly believe is called a cup and handle. And you should learn understand them. I don't think you should always be looking for them. When people are like, head and shoulders, I don't think you should be looking for things like that, in my opinion. I have noticed on here, you see a perfect top. It looks like a big cup. There's a nice handle. And then you're waiting for the touch back up here on the 1172. And as soon as you get a break on that, the cup and handle will be confirmed there, and a lot of people are watching that, and there'll be a lot of buy orders and stuff waiting for it, and volume will kick in, and you'll probably see some sticking points around here because there's a lot of liquidity here and a lot of gaps, and you're going to see probably a little bit of consolidation here. But as soon as this top breaks, we're off. So then the question becomes, well, how do you determine where this is going to go to? And again, fundamentally, if they might draw a massive contract, unknown news, which you could send it higher. That's impossible to say. But, if you're trading, you can kind of get a good idea by using a fib extension. Now, I'm going to quickly show you how it works. And it seems confusing to start with, but it's not. You're going to find your swing low, like on the fib, somewhere around here. Again, excuse the fact that it's not perfect. You're looking for your swing high, which is here. Now, I'm going to go slightly over here so I can see where I'm looking. And then you're looking for your pullback, which we saw at 490 something, around that golden zone there, right? And then typically from your 0.618, which was this 488, 492 level, it's then targeting the 1.618, and sometimes, if you're lucky, the 2.618, maybe higher, whatever. So I am expecting this now to sort of come up into the 1.618, the 2.618. It's a very good company, so it could. We saw Rocket Lab, we saw ASTS, all these other companies that had a lot of hype and a lot of good news coming out, all take massive leaps. Some of them even came into the 2618 because they were so good. And you can see there's a lot of interest here. So who knows if massive volume pumps in, it could. Now, my target here, as you can see, this is on the 22 level. That's where I'm watching. Will I take a trade there? We'll see. There's FOMO that kicks in. I don't really feel it too much, but I'm still human. And I love the company. I'm probably going to sell a good chunk here and maybe let a little bit more run up to here. And then if it goes higher, then tough. That's part of trading. That's the psychology of it. If I then miss out on, if it runs to 40, then tough. I need to be grateful. It's very important that you remember where you've come from and to be grateful for what you've had. And if it goes higher, to accept that and understand that if that doesn't bother you, then you're on the right lines for being a good trader, because you can't let these things bother you. And it's a percentage game. If you're selling this at 22 plus and it runs to 40, sure, that's a good percentage, 77%. But that's nothing on when we caught this at 155. So it's a bit lower, whatever. And you're selling it at 22. That's massive. So It's a percentage game. You need to be happy. If it goes higher, it goes higher. You stuck to your plan, and that's the most important thing. Because if this goes to 22 and it pulls back, and I didn't sell any, I'm not going to be gutted, but you'd be gutted. So you can't ever really win unless you can trade it and be firm with your plan.
And I think again, this is where it comes to trade and investing, PTs, etc. Because like we all knew it was going. Well, we didn't know, but we all said it was going to 8 to 10 by year end, but didn't mean we was all selling then. But obviously, my price target's 20. So as I go up to 20, it doesn't mean I'm waiting to 20 and sell a lot. I will probably sell a little bit more at like 15, a little bit at 20, and then hold the rest. Like say, everyone's price targets are different, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And if it's an investment, then you don't want to be caught up in this. If you can't handle the stress that comes with it, the FOMO, all that stuff, and it's an investment for you, it's an investment for me. So I'm always prepared to hold it, but you're best just holding it. And if it comes back and you think, well, I could have loaded up some more shares, not kicking yourself about it. It's an investment, and you need to, like Jay always says in the Discord, on any pullback, is you need to remember it's an investment. And if you truly believe in the company and you truly believe it's an investment, then you need to stop letting these things bother you. You need to actually be grateful because it doesn't make a difference, because you're holding it long term, because you truly see a long term plan here. And you should actually be grateful that it's come down quite a lot, because you're buying shares again here, which is like, what's that, like £3.80, £4? It's not a lot. And you would have wished for that when it was here. You'd have wished you had more. And it's the same when if this goes to 22, you're going to wish you had more, and you're going to wish you had more at 155, which you didn't. So you're going to wish you had more here. But at the time when it was here, you were panicking, not you, but people were panicking, wishing they had more. And it's the same when it comes up here. You wish you had bought more here. And that's a very important lesson. And again, I can't stress the psychology enough.
And this was another one that one of the guys have asked Alessio, and I know this one's going to be expecting the answer they're going to get from this. How do you screen for new stocks? Do you keep an eye, or do you use a screener? Now, I know how you find them, but that's like the guys are going to be quite shocked, aren't they?
This is part of just being active. I'm active within communities. I'm active on X, on Stock Twits. I'm not going to say it's the funny name of that, but I'm always on these boards. I'm always looking at, if you go on X and you search up the $sign, and then you can type in the ticker, you can see what people are posting about that stock. And you'll often see on Stock Twits and X that people are also tagging in other companies of similar sectors, and I'm always looking into them. I'll glance at the chart for a few minutes, and if I see that it looks nice, I will look into it further. There are stocks that have had multiple dilutions and stock splits and reverse splits. I stay well clear of them. I don't care if the company's turned around. If it's maybe I'm bad for it, because sometimes even when it's a new company that's taken over an old ticker, I'll just avoid it because it's just a complete mess, and I don't need to. There are so many good companies, I don't need to, but I will then look into those tickers, spend a bit of time, look at the chart. If the chart looks good, that's the first thing. I will always look at the chart if it looks nice, if it's a good loading zone. If it's already done like a 6,000% run, I'm not interested. I'm, again, playing a percentage numbers game. If it looks something like this, like it's coming ready or it's an accumulation, I will look into the chart, into the company briefly, spend 5 minutes. What do they do? If it's something I don't like, I won't bother, because, again, I'm trading my investments. If it's a weed farm in Canada, I don't care about any of that stuff. I know some people do. I'll avoid it. We all know what's coming. It's AI. It's AI data centers. It's energy. You should be looking into those kind of things. I think it's just,
that's where my next thing I was going to ask you. I can see you've got Nebius and Iran and stuff there in your AI. What have you touched on any data centers? Have you looked at any of the charts? Like, what's the Nebius chart looking like for you?
Yeah, so Nebius is a very good one. I was talking about this actually at 33, I think, with a friend, and we always laugh because we didn't load it, but we only didn't load it because we caught surf, and then we caught
20.
on
20.
Yeah. So do you know, this is a fantastic company. I don't have FOMO because I missed it. It's whatever. There's plenty of good companies. But yeah, we all know it's AI. This is one of the leaders. They're such a good company. They're working with NVIDIA and other things like that. So that always helps give you confidence. They've had some big news. There are a lot of gaps here. I truly believe that a lot of gaps do get revisited and closed.
Do you want to touch on gaps then real quick? While you've got gaps on there, do you want to touch on what your view is on gaps and stuff?
This makes my life easier. It's a gap indicator. which tells me where the gaps are. You can get it to show you as well. But, you know, with companies like this, they move so quickly and always have good news that they don't always fill the gaps. But it's good to keep it in mind because, again, when you're trading, you need to take into account the up and the down. It's very important you understand the down too because you don't want to be caught out. So I'm aware there are gaps here. Do I think these will fill? No, I don't think Nebius is going to come back down to 29. It could do. I'm well aware of that. The whole market might take a massive crash. I don't believe there's an AI bubble, but that's personal. Could it all take a massive crash and come there? Sure. You know, this is where if things do turn back, I'm looking at these levels. I'm looking here. I'm looking here. I'm looking here. And it's the same with on the way up. You know, these are then the targets. I expect these gaps to fill. I mean, these are lower. There's no up gaps, but or however it wants to pronounce it, but to the high side. You know, I'm generally something like this. I was looking at this yellow line I put in. It seems to be a key level that it's played at. And again, it's not perfect, but whatever. But yeah, this is a double bottom. Again, if you look into your patterns and stuff, like the cup and handle, the double bottoms, double tops, where price plays off of, you'll see that that's a double bottom. It's a W, whatever, or any funny abbreviation you want to make. But yeah, it's good to be in mindful of those gaps and use them as ideas of targets in the future. And going back to the other question of AI, you want to be keeping an eye on these because when the computers came out and the whole .com bubble, you know, it was all computers and you knew where to put your money. It was in tech. Now, choosing the right company is the hard bit, but you get a general idea. If you spend time on stock twits and X and stuff, you see where the hype is, you see where the good news is. It becomes easier to follow the more active you are. And now IREN, really, I don't have it here. I have it in data centers, but there's something I actually wanted to show some people. But yeah, you know, it's going to be AI and it's going to be data centers because they power the AI. You know, we're not stupid to this. We know it's going to happen. And then you need to realize that we're going to need energy to power all of these data centers. And it's an onwards chain. And then we've got robots come in. We've got eVTOL, which I've been a big fan of for many, many years. Playing that early, I made quite a bit of money on Joby and Archer. But you need to understand what the general trend is and find the good companies within that. And that will give you a good idea of where to start putting your money.
I think another one that someone's just asked about as well, because said, thanks for the explanation. I'm not sure if you can see these, by the way. Thanks for the explanation. What made you put RVPH on your list entry is low. However, it's based in the pharma industry. So I'm assuming on your watch list there, you got RVPH on there somewhere and someone's clocked it. I think it's on your watch list. I've seen it as well somewhere. Might be near the top on your watch list or something, maybe. Yeah, there we go. That's
so these are my watching. These aren't all ones that I have my own specific section.
I see Hive on there as well. That'd be a good one to touch on.
Yeah, so these are ones that I will. I'm not overly crazy about, but they're ones that I've heard good things about, like you guys say about Hive in the Discord. You know, I've put Wrap here because I've marked them because they're ones I'm interested in, very much so, or trading. But I wouldn't look into these too much. These are just, if someone's mentioned it on X, I'm seeing a lot of interest around like ASST. You know, some massive pumps there. I think there's something to do with Bitcoin, if I remember rightly. It's something I'm watching. I know there's a lot of hype around it. There's a lot of interest. I'm just keeping it on my watch list. And, you know, if I ever come across some spare money that I don't care about, I might take a small punt on it. Yeah, if I come across some spare money, if I cash out on Ondas at 22 and I feel like throwing, you know, a few thousand at this just for fun, whatever, no hard feelings. Or I'll see what happens. I mean, Ondas, when it was early, wasn't nearly as good as it is. Well, it was, but all the good news that's come out has progressed it. And, you know, if these companies are getting a lot of people talking about them, maybe we'll see the same thing. So I'm keeping it there. I'm very conscious of it, and I want to see what happens. Again, this looks like accumulation to me. Be mindful of the gaps. Now, these small gaps, I'm not fussed about. I never worry about a gap that's, you know, within 0.02, 03, whatever. That I truly believe that could just be spreads or algorithms not getting it quite right, whatever. I'm not overly fussed. But if you see a whole dollar gap or whatever, then there's a good chance that you're probably going to see some movement towards there at some point. Now, I wouldn't look into these too much, other than the ones, you know, I'm watching these because I'm invested in this, but I'm actually quite stubborn. I've only just upgraded to a premium version of TradingView.
I was just about to ask you that because someone literally just asked that question. They said, is TradingView subscriptions worth it for the extra indicators?
Do you know? No. I've got all the way up past £1 billion without it. It's annoying. You get adverts, whatever. Click off of them. I was very frugal. I was truly under the mindset that I could use that money to invest and not. You don't need to spend it on this because you can do most of the stuff for free. This is nice to label it. I only did this the other day. It's taken me many years to even bother doing this. Now I have enough money that, you know, the £250 or whatever it cost me really doesn't matter. But it means I don't have to switch all my indicators out and stuff. But you don't need, personally, I don't use many indicators anyway. So I just switch between them and just do a little bit more legwork. But no, I don't think you need it.
So going forward from all this and from what you've shown, obviously this year's been like a phenomenal year for you. What's 26 look like for you, and what's the plan going forward? What are you looking at, and what's the plan for somebody who's now holding seven figures?
Yeah, the plan, it stays the same again, regardless of what you have. You can't let a bigger number throw you off. It will. You guys will get there if you're not there already. And you know, from an outsider looking in, you think, oh, that's crazy. You're taking all that risk and stuff, but it's no different. I mean, of course, the money makes quite a difference to your life when you get more. But in terms of the trading game, you know, I'm still a small fish to some of the guys I look at, and they're trading just the same as they were as I am. And you know, the guys who are playing with a few £100 might be trading the same way that I am as well. So I don't think the number matters too much. Into 26, I'm still conscious of AI, data centers, power, things like that. I'm just going to keep hold of Ondas and hope that this comes up to 20. I say hope. I'm expecting it to come up to the 22s and then maybe look for a play back to. I'm expecting this to maybe come back to 14, 13 here. All this liquidity, maybe this line here, because it's important to realize that these lines are respected, and most of the time you do see a revisit on these lines. So I think we will break this at some point. I don't think it will take long. Where the target 2 is, I expect 22, maybe higher.
I think in the next week or two, maybe 3, my own speculation, we get Blue UAS announcement, and I think that's the next run.
Of course, yeah. And, you know, government contracts and stuff. And I think that can help push this to where it needs to go to. Again, like I said, news-driven helps push this.
Yeah, even though it doesn't need that, for anybody that's watching and doesn't understand on this, it doesn't necessarily need government contracts, but the sentiment behind it will drag volume in.
Exactly, yeah. I always truly believe the fundamentals really help the technicals do what they need to do and help them get to where they need to go to. Sometimes it doesn't make sense again here. The fundamentals were good. The technicals brought it down. That's whatever. But I'm expecting this to come to 22, probably by the end of the year, maybe into January. And then I'm very conscious that this line here exists, and I would expect it to be respected. And I may then be looking to maybe just sit on the cash for a bit, you know, and wait for this to come back. And that is actually, people don't talk about this enough. Sitting on cash is so difficult because we want to trade. We instinctively, it's like a gambling machine, and we always want to put money in the machine. And FOMO kicks in, people are getting percentages elsewhere. And to actually just sit on your hands is the best thing you can do, because if you can sell this when it comes up and wait for it to come back and catch it perfectly, you get a much better entry. Now, I'm not saying do this. I'm a trader, an investor, whatever, and I don't mind if I miss out. But, you know, for me, I'd be looking to then reload this about 14. I'm not going to wait for it to come back in just in case it doesn't, spreads and things like that. We may even see a retouch on these two, you know, on the cup and handle. We may even see a retest there. Or I may be completely wrong and we just keep going because it's such a great company, whatever.
And I think that's like someone just said, to put that slide was on the back of the government shutdown. Just bad timing. Totally true, but also like it's market sentiment. Naturally, because Ondas is still, yes, it's a medium cap, but it is a small cap. When people get scared and volume comes out of the market, that's why you see it. So the problem is with today's generation in the market, especially, and how accessible it is to buy and sell. It's a lot of scared money, and money comes in and out so fast.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. Ever since Trump's came in, there's a lot. Yeah, most of it's just gamblers, if you like.
And another question for Alessio. Would you not tuck your cash into something fairly safe and aggressive? Well, that's not aggressive, fairly safe like Google. So I guess what they're trying to say is when does it start becoming safe for investments, I guess?
I've never been really fussed about that. And that this is quite a controversial subject. Now, I believe,
personal preference.
Yeah, I believe I'm getting good at what I'm doing. Why would I stop that? Sure, I can diversify a bit, and I will. I believe everyone's, you know, only a few good companies away from financial freedom. You can start with £5,000-10,000, which you can save. You get a good company like Ondas at 150, 160, whatever. You can turn that into 50, 60K. You do the same thing again, You do it 3 times and you're playing in the multi-millions. So I think at that point, then when I start hitting sort of 5+ million, then maybe I'll diversify a bit. In the meantime, I've been buying assets, physical assets, partly for my own enjoyment, partly for inheritance to give down to my son. And also mainly really because it's stability. Like I've bought a nice watch and whatever, there's a bit of money in that. If everything goes wrong, then I still have that. I still have many years of rent that available to put a roof over my kid's head and whatever. So I just diversify a little bit in that respect for now. Yeah, sure. I will get into gold. I'll get into the S&P when the returns are worth it. Again, it's a percentage game. I mean, yeah, I'm just getting to the point now where life's about to get really good and this stuff's really going to start paying off. I'm a big fan of cars and all the, the nice things. We're blokes. We like the finer things.
Cigars, cars, watches.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. It's quite materialistic, and I try not to be like that. But I love cars. We all have our things we love, and I've sacrificed all these things for many years to get to this point. Now I'm going to want to start enjoying it. And truly, as long as you're not an idiot, I'm going to diversify. If I buy an expensive car, I've got £200,000 in that car, which is probably not going to lose too much. Nothing crazy. There's still money there. I'm going to buy a house, some physical assets and things like that. So there's all, then I'm safe, really. As long as you've got the house and stuff, then me personally, if it all went wrong, you've still done better than most and you still never have to work a full-time job ever again in your life. Now, I guess it depends on what everyone's goal is. For me, comfort, I guess. We're going to get there and then I'm going to put a bit into safety. And I think I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. There's no point trying to slow it down. Sure, I could take some losses, but as long as I buy some assets on the way, then I've still won.
And I think you've just hit the nail on the head. It's all about an end goal. What is your end goal? You've got to have an end goal because, like mine, for instance, I don't want to be retiring at 68. Like, scrap that. I want to be done late. Well, it was 50 originally, but I'm doing a lot better, so I think I'll be there a lot sooner. But I want to be retired at a decent age where I can go travel and still go and enjoy. And I still do it now, but go and enjoy myself. My kids can be looked after when I have them. Like, do you know what I mean? I want the same boat. It's about having a goal because if you're just doing it just because I don't know, I just feel like you've got to have an end goal as well.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm now at a point where it's weird because I could almost, if I really wanted to, there's not many things I now couldn't buy. Obviously, you couldn't buy a jet and stuff, but I can go and shop.
But realistically,
it's a weird feeling. So I kind of have to now make my own goals, and it's part of it's helping other people. I enjoy that. It can get exhausting, but it's find fulfillment in that. I find fulfillment in being right.
Just reminded me something, so I am going to drop this quickly in there. There will be a link in the description after this as well, because I don't know if you've seen it, Alessio, but I've started it today. We've done a giving link, and we're going to up until Christmas, we're all donating money to the home. Basically, it's for homeless, so families who are homeless. For every £5 that's in there, they get a Christmas dinner and they can get some gifts and stuff for Christmas. Because I think that's important while we're touching on this type of basis, while we're talking about millions and hundreds of thousands of pounds, that there is people out there that haven't even got a roof over their head. So that link, I'm gonna put that in there real quick actually while you carry on. But I know you're going to touch on that because I know you're a generous man that gives to charity as well. But after you've done that, can you touch base on options and what you do on that basis as well, please, man?
Of course, yeah. Yeah, so what Jason said is very important. I've come from, I've had a nice upbringing, but I've never had handouts. All my money's self-invested. I've lived a very frugal life. I've lived at the bottom. I'm still not at the top. And it's very important on your way up that don't let greed take over. You must always remember where you've come from. You must always be nice to other people, no matter whether they're behind you or ahead of you. You tip your barber, whatever you do, your money is there to also help other people. It's not just to help yourself. And I think I've personally found, and I know a lot of people do, you find more fulfillment in giving and helping others than you do spending on frivolous things, which is nice, but you'll find that eventually you get bored of it and it doesn't mean a lot. But yeah, for now, the fulfillment comes from being right. It comes from helping other people and things like that. I don't think I'm ever going to stop these kind of things. I'm going to just keep playing with it because it's fun. Some more quick examples where I believe in algorithms. If you look at certain charts, they seem to follow the exact same patterns. For instance, is it Nebius and Iren? You see that? They're pretty much identical, but they're two different companies, which is weird. So why are the charts so similar? because the companies are doing different. I mean, they're doing different things. They're progressing it. They're both progressing quickly, but they're progressing at different rates. There's another one I've got here together. You can find loads of examples. Where's Wolf? Being blunt, is Wolf. This was actually Barney who found this. I taught him about algorithms and stuff, and he's actually found these for me, these examples. So credit due to him for that. Here's Wolf. Here's Cypher. Do you see that? They're weirdly similar. There are discrepancies, but they are weirdly similar. And I truly believe that there are algorithms and they control where the price is going to go, and you just have to wait. And let me just show you one more thing quickly. This is just one random example. You can find loads, and I truly believe you guys should play around with the Fibonacci's. Is if you put a fib on something like Rocket Lab as well, and you find the swing low to your swing high, you see how well.
I'm going to ask you on that swing low in a second.
Yeah, so it's loved that 618, and I could put an extension on, and I believe it's just over the 0.1618 or the 1618 or whatever. So it's just sitting and waiting, and you wouldn't have got the top perfectly, but you would understand as it starts rejecting. Why is it rejecting? Let's draw this. Do we think it's going to follow this? Maybe, and it did, and it was lovely. Look at that. Sorry.
And how do you find the swing low? How does I've seen Will ask that earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt you while he's going. How do you find the swing low?
Yeah, so again, I'm on the daily chart. I don't really go much lower. It's the most respected. The swing low is not here. It's your absolute bottom before this pump. Now, I think everyone should quickly look into Elliott waves. They're very important. So you have wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5. Go and do some research. Look into it. It runs with the Fibonacci. So this would be wave 1. This is wave 2. This is wave 3. And wave 1 begins from the swing low, which is the absolute bottom of this move. So it's not here because there's a lower here. You have to be realistic. I'm not going to then go back years and use that low. You can see from the start of this movement here, the lowest point was here. So I'm going to always use that point there. And the swing high, you're never going to time it just right. But again, you're going to be looking left for another previous high. And as soon as it rejects and starts playing down, you're going to think, well, maybe that was the swing high. So I'm going to draw this out. And I'm going to keep it in the back of my mind that if that is the top, then we could come down to the 618. Now, it doesn't always come to the 618, but that is a very good level to be watching.
That's interesting. See, that's what I love about it, streams. I'm learning just as much as the next person, so it's great. So on the cusp of options, obviously, do you still do options? Are you still owning options? Are you still having your options on Ondas? Like, can you touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, I still trade options. I don't have any options in Ondas at the moment. I've got options in EHang and I have options in RAP. And the reason I have options in those is because I like most of my money in Ondas, to be honest, but I can trade at a leverage, if you like, through options and have a larger position in them. Now, I don't really trade options based on time. I know that there's your gammas and your deltas and your thetas and however you pronounce it, theta, whatever. I'm more trading options on intrinsic value. That's really what I care about. So I'm always calculating that if my options expire in April, and if they jump out, I lose the money, whatever. Most of it was profit anyway. And that's part of being a trader. You need to just get over it. But, as long as this by April comes into, my options are at $2. So, I should be okay. But if this runs to 7, the intrinsic alone, anywhere here, is going to put my options at crazy value, regardless of the time. So I'm not saying do that. Again, we all have different strategies. But yeah, that's my option play. My Ondas, my EHang. I have a weird love for this stock. I think their time will come. Again, the technicals, I had a big wedge here, wedge 1, and there's an inner wedge, as you can see, and it's like a spring. They spring, and then they have a big impulse movement. Now, did I expect this? Yes. Did I expect it to go down? It was a possibility. Again, like I say, you should always take into consideration the up and the down. And I'm in another Discord, which I'm not going to promote, but it's specifically specifically for EHang investors. And I wanted it to go up, but I also said that it could dip into the liquidity here. There's a lot of wicks here and a lot of zone all around this 12 level. Well, this came into 1273. There's a lot of money just sort of playing around here. So I did actually call that a while ago that it could come there. And unfortunately for people holding long, it did. Whatever. It's one of those things. It could have happened. It did. look at the company. Is it going to be well? Could we come back into this wedge and then continue up? Yeah. And I'm going to be targeting, these highs, these highs up here, and maybe even the further rise. I mean, ignore that target. That's a personal target, but I like to draw things where I know where certain values will sit for my account. But yeah, there's liquidity zones. I don't really overthink it with fair value gaps and all that stuff. I mean, they exist. I believe fair value gaps. Maybe it works in stocks. I don't know. I don't really use it. Maybe in Forex, I know it's very popular. But yeah, I'm just always looking to the left.
And again, like I don't know too much about Yang, but I know it's a growth company, I believe, if I'm right, and it's not profitable yet, if I'm correct. And a lot of these companies, when people get in them, even in investments or trading, or mainly investments, you have to understand if they're non-profitable companies yet, you need to hold and have that mindset that you're going to hold it for 5+ years. It doesn't mean you've got to, but it means you've got to have that type of mindset, because it's not going to happen overnight. And if it does, like BYND did, etc., again, they're lucky volume plays, and you can get caught on both ends of that candlestick.
Exactly, yeah, and that's quite important as to why I trade. Personally, I trade investments because I'm always prepared to hold it, and it alleviates some of that, the psychology behind it, and not worrying. Not that I would anyway, but
and swing trading's it's good if you see the option. I mean, like with surf that you guys were in. If I'm honest, like I said, I did bare minimal on that, but I've seen what was happening and I've seen the research. And this is the great thing about the Discord. Everyone sort of sometimes can do the hard work for you, but it is important that you understand what you're doing. Now, I didn't understand the stock, but I understood what was happening. And I got in at like a lower range with you guys, and I got out at like 5. You guys got out at 9, I believe, if I can remember correctly. I didn't get too greedy with it, but I swing traded it, and there was like a lot to say. But where's Surf sitting now? Is it like 2 something? Is it? I think it is.
Surf sitting pretty much bang on 2, I believe.
Yeah, that was better. I did look the other day, and that's what I mean. So if you look at the volume movement of what that did, it went to, what did it go to? 9 summit, like right in that golden zone there.
Yeah, 9.
That's what I mean. And that was a massive volume play, and there was a lot going on, and it can show you how quick a trade can go away. But if someone was simply just copy trading and investing off your trade, they would have been burnt now. And that's why it's important to do your own research.
Absolutely, in and out quickly. And if you're relying on someone else, you may be holding it here, and then you're going to point fingers, and they don't really need pointing because it was never that person's fault.
It was a fast movement, wasn't it, Surf? Surf was a fast
absolutely
over a case of what was it, a month or 2? I can't remember. I remember it was a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was a few weeks. Yeah, we had this massive pump here, and then they did a massive dilution, which I'm not going to give my opinion on, but it really played with the price. Whether it was calculated, I don't know. But again, these were massive pump, massive dump, massive pump, massive dump. I think they have a very good company. I think if they can pull it off, their Surf OS into 26, I'm very conscious about. That's why it's in my watching. I'm still paying attention, because if they can get this software off the ground, I think they can do very well. And maybe they get a different multiplier in how their company's valued, because I know software and tech is valued much higher than an aviation company. So
and I think what we've just touched on there is it doesn't matter. I know we laugh about our Discord, but I think having a network around you and having people around you in some type of network, whether it's our Discord, whether it's another Discord, you don't want an echo chamber. You don't want people that are just pumping stuff and talking nonsense. But it is important that you surround yourself with smart, clever people, because stuff like this gets noticed. I mean, what have we done this year? We've done some of the stocks that we've picked out. We've done Ondas, Surf, you've done RAP, we've done SoFi, we've done Nebius, we've done BYND. We've done there's too many. I think there's over 20 stocks that we've called near enough at the bottom, and everyone's got in at the top, right down to even energy stocks, everything.
Yeah. And actually, you've just reminded me, going back to when the question came in of how do you find other stocks? Well, another good example is I've been invested and trading Ondas now for a little period of time, and been keeping up to date with their fundamentals. And, kudos to Brad and the others in M5 and the others in the chat who are all contributing to helping with the due diligence, which I truly believe everyone should get in the Discord, because it's so good and there's so much. It's a plethora of knowledge, and there's so much stuff in there that if we all contribute, it saves everyone time, and it's all there for you to go back to.
Hands make light work.
Exactly, yeah. And I've been paying attention to what Ondas has been investing in. I think that they know what they're doing. They're a very good team. And if I believe in Ondas, then I believe in the companies they're going to be investing in. And, some of those,
Copin's a good one. I like Copin. Yeah. I did a lot of research into Copin myself. It's an absolute stellar of a stock.
Exactly. And the same here with Safe Pro. They seem good. And if we see,
a banger as well.
I think this Coppin one, they're designing with the screens and stuff for the drones or whatever for Ondas. I need to look into them more. I really do. But I'm very
There's so
keen.
many though. That's the problem. There's so many.
Exactly, yeah. But I think as Ondas scales, I think we're going to see Coppin and SafePro also scale because they're helping with the business. So, and this is still quite a small price. Now, don't always rely just on the price because you need to look at the amount of shares there are on the market cap because they're massive factors. I mean, this could be $300 a share, and the actual company, the value of the company could be next to nothing. So you need to take that into account too. But I'm aware that this is accumulation. I think this could do a nice movement here. We've got some previous targets here, here, and here, which we could see, especially if we see a ramp up in Ondas. Now, if Ondas comes to 22, 20, whatever to my targets, and I still see this still slow or low down, then I'm going to be quite tempted to start putting some money into here because I think this will follow because they're going to help supply some of the parts to Ondas, which will
It's quite
scale
funny, because going from your trading perspective and then going from my my due diligence perspective, because I do things differently to you, but I actually had this pulling back as this price as a bear case, which is it's mad to see it at this price because it was overvalued at where it was at the all-time high. Well, sorry, not all-time high, but the recent high. And I had it in my research that it was going to pull back down, and it was good to see that it was right. So it's a good feeling when you get it right as well. It means you're doing right.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's something I'm going to watch because it'll probably move at the same time as Ondas because they're going to probably scale somewhat together. But if it doesn't, it's there. I've got it on my watch list. I'm very conscious of it. If that starts happening, I'm going to, and this comes to 22, whatever, I'm probably going to be selling quite a lot. And I'm going to be doing a ton of research here if this is still sitting around the 2s or the 3s or whatever, and it's still low, because I think then a lot of interest could come into this to help scale on that. So that's when I would then move my attention and my time into the other things I'm watching. I'm not, I haven't done a lot of research on a lot of these things, but I'm conscious they're there. And when the time is right, I'll be watching it like a hawk and I'll be doing a lot of research. And again, this is where I try and keep it simple. I don't want thousands of stocks here. I know everyone's different, but the less clutter I find, the better.
And do you watch the futures much and like the S&P 500? Do you pay much attention to that, considering you don't invest in ETFs, etc.? Or
not really? It can give you a slight idea of where things might go, but I've seen over the many years, I've seen what happens. I've seen when the algorithms want a company to move, everything will be red, and the one that I'm expecting the algorithms to move will be green, and it'll be the only thing green on my whole watch list or whatever, on most of them. And I truly believe it's because the algorithms wanted it to move regardless of market sentiment and all the other stuff, and they have to follow where it's destined to go, whether everything else is dumping or not. And I've seen it many times, and it's quite interesting. And you get big pumps, 20% on it, and everything else is red. And everyone's like, well, why is this green and everything else is red? And I just sit there quietly, sit back and think, well, I believe it's because of the algorithms, and that's what they want.
oh yeah, you good?
But again, none of what I'm saying is how you say, maybe factual. Again, it's all things I've put together. You could class it all as speculation. I have strong conviction in my speculation. That's probably the best way.
It's tools to the war chest, because if you can learn from everybody else's different perspectives and take a little bit from what everybody else tells you and teaches you, and then put it in top of what you already know, all you're going to do is continue to grow and have more arsenal to your dispense. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, stuff like charts and stuff is my weakness. So that's why I've naturally started talking more to yourself about it, which you've shared with me and people like M5 and stuff. And if you don't ask, you don't learn. And watching stuff is how you learn. So,
yeah. And something else that I have noticed over the years is when there's fear, and I think a lot of people know this already, a lot of money then drives into gold and Bitcoin. So that is something else to be aware of. If everything is dumping and, bond yields are coming down and stuff, because there's plenty of money, then or all-time fear, if there's lots of money, if there's no money. It's interesting that you'll watch the ETFs and bonds and gold and how they all work differently at the same time, based on fear, based on greed, based on market sentiment. When there's massive fear, there's a lot of money pumping into Bitcoin and gold because they're safer and they help combat inflation, and vice versa. And then you'll see Bitcoin and stuff dumping and the money flows back into stocks. But, this isn't technical analysis. It's just something that I keep in the back of my mind. So that's really the only time I'm looking at, the S&P or gold or things like that.
And when you get into things like, and I think this is important as well, because people's thinking that you're a trader and stuff, like obviously with the trading, with the investing mindset, obviously you can get into something like Ondas and it might, let's say for instance, this zone that you're getting into, there's not a time frame on it. It doesn't mean 2 to 4 to 6 weeks. That could take another year before it gets there.
Yeah, and you have to be prepared to hold on. Now, I never go into it thinking it's going to take that long, but I am prepared to hold it. And this is where you get a lot of peace of mind from it being an investment trade rather than just a trade. To just be prepared to hold it and keep loading into it. But yeah, you have to look at it both ways. It's not all negative. Because a lot of people will think, oh, well, it's not going and it's sad and whatever. The longer it stays down, the more money you can get in, the more you can go and work 3 jobs and make as much money as possible and get as much in. So as soon as it does go, you're going to make the biggest return you could. So look at it as in a good way. Again, it's all psychology. It's the way you look at it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And obviously, because you're in things like Ondas and stuff, do you look at, like, I can see you've got them in your drones there, UMAC, RCAP, things like that, DPRO. Do you invest in those things? I mean, DPRO, if you can just have a look at that one real quick. That one was another one that obviously I was watching. I know people were buying, and I was saying, be careful of this because the market cap was so small and it rose so quickly. And you'll be able to see that when you zoom out on your chart a little bit. That recently it had a really big influx of, you know what I mean, of price range. And so, do you invest in any other drone companies or look at any of them, or do you strictly?
I look at them. I keep them in the back of my mind. I'm not a massive fan of RCAT and stuff. UMAC, I'm very, very bullish about, actually, purely because of who's on the board and what they do. And it's a supply chain. All these drones are going to need motors and parts. And UMAC, with Donald Trump Jr. on the board, you know where the money's going to go. And it's going to go to the supplier. The supplier's always at the supplier's at the top of the chain, and everything, it all drips down to the other companies. And it's like the supermarket and stuff. Without them, we're stuffed. So this, for me, I wouldn't touch this. I had friends suggesting it to me, and whether it's a good time to buy in and stuff. And sure, you can get a nice pump on it. I don't like this. To me, I don't need to be in something like this. There's plenty of other opportunities. Could you get a nice cup up to here? Sure. Will it? I don't know. There's a lot of liquidity here, as you can see. A lot of previous moves, a gap over. It's a key level to watch around here, and that would be a nice trade, sure. But again, that's personal preference. I'd need to look into the company more, whether I like them. I keep it because I like to see how all the drones play out together, and then whether one's an algo play, whether one's a drone sector movement, whatever.
See, this is the great thing about what I do and networking and becoming friends with people and stuff. I spoke to a few people in the industry about DPRO and some of the contracts. Yeah, they've got army contracts, but they're penny contracts. And everybody that I spoke to in that industry that I've now networked with was like, yeah, it's not a great one.
Well, I can't really comment, so I haven't actually done too much research on them, but I appreciate the information, but I'm probably not going to look into them anymore. And what you've said to me helps back my thought process on that, which is nice.
It's volume based, that one is.
Yeah. This is a very big one. I'm watching UMAC, like I said, the supply chain and who's on the board. Could it be wrong? Sure. But, let's see what happens.
UMAC's a good one to look at, to be fair. They just recently got a massive contract, didn't they? DoD contract.
Yeah. And
so again, when you use your day-to-day research to touch people so they can learn this, what type of things do you use to research your news? Do you just use like your Twitters and your Discords and stuff, or is there a way that you search for news? For instance, I use Webull, and you've got the news tab there, which is an absolute amazing feature. But obviously, how do you go about your day-to-day news, looking and tracking stocks?
That's a very good question, actually. And I use the forums last. I use forums to find stocks and stuff, but I obviously take everything on there with a pinch of salt. And there's a lot of idiots on there. There is some good information on there, but I like to find out what's true first and then filter through those comments. So a very good website that I urge everyone to use is Fintel. There's very good information on there. I don't pay for a
That's in the ebook, by the way, everybody, which is free in the description.
Yeah, I mean, it shows you pretty much everything: short interest, institutional ownership, insider ownership, everything you really need. And then I just look at news and I look at what they're doing, who they are, what they do. Am I interested in the sector? Are they expecting any news to come up? Is there any contracts in the pipeline? Things like that. And then I'll go to the stock boards and see what they're saying and see if anything backs up my idea of what's happening, or if there's anything that says, there might be a possible contract here, and then I'll go and dig into that information myself, either through AI is not always the most reliable, but it helps save time through Grok or ChatGPT, or just Google in general and finding documents or SEC filings and things like that. But yeah, it's just
No, I think that's bang on. Is there anything else that you feel you need to touch on, or is there anything else that you think that you need to touch on, or do you feel like you've touched all the bases so far?
I think I've touched on most bases. Again, I don't want to overcomplicate it for anyone, because I really don't think it needs to be complicated. I think the complication within all of this, again, and I can't urge it enough, is the psychology, and that's the biggest thing in all of this. You find,
and I guess one of the things that obviously people are probably going to be wondering and probably commenting on this is, do you plan on ever being like how me, Ben, and Brad do, posting content and doing stuff, or do you just want to focus on your own thing and you ain't really that bothered? You just want to be what you're doing?
It's a real catch-22 for me, because I love helping other people, and I try and help people as much as I can. However, from day dot, I never wanted people to really know who I am. And I think most people's goal, not being famous, but these people, celebrities and stuff, it's all very well, but I think most of them, the goal I think most people want is to be rich and no one know who you are, and it's very hard to do. To make lots of money and no one know who you are, I think, is actually quite difficult. And I think privacy is the biggest thing. I don't want people looking online and finding who I am, and then it just creates problems that I don't want. The whole point of money I want is to have less problems and not worry about my family being targets and stuff. So it's a real catch-22, because at the same time I want to help people. I help people in person, I help online. I understand that showing your face probably helps a lot more with getting engagement, and I could do it without showing my face, but I think then you have to be very careful of you don't show any information you don't want to. And I'm trying to live a stress-free life, to be honest. And
to be fair, you can like say get away without showing your face, because like M5, he's obviously very high in a company in America. Obviously, I've spoken to him about it, and so he can't show his face. Brad, for instance, doesn't like to show his face for his own personal reasons. I mean, and to be honest, this was never really the angle why I started doing this. I did this so I could obviously track my own journey and stuff like that. And it was really out of my comfort zone. So that was one of the reasons why I pushed myself to do it. But even my portfolio, I only wanted it to grow 10% a year, and I was happy with that. And I mean, we've done what, 250 in 12 months in the last 12 months. So, I mean, it's just about, like, I guess I want people to learn. So what I've started showing now is mistakes are made, try and teach people. Because I mean, your knowledge has gotten you, has made your portfolio grow exponentially over the last 12 months. So somebody might really value from watching this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I like doing things like this. And I think it's very good for you, for your personal development of what you're doing in many aspects of your life. For me personally, I don't want to have like a tab open or something, and then someone sees where I live, or I don't want that stress, and I don't want to be overthinking everything. So I try and help through Discord. If you guys aren't in the Discord, I strongly urge you to get in there. I tell people in person and stuff that, or online. I wish I had seen that Discord when I was starting out, because there's so much information in there, and all these young ambitious people don't know any direction to go in life. And I think it's very good to have a good community of so many different knowledgeable people in all aspects, drop shipping or whatever you do. There's people in there who know other people or whatever. There's just information everywhere in that group. So I think it's very good for people to get in there. And I share lots of information in there myself, because I don't have to give out any personal information. I share my portfolio, and I'm not doing that to brag. I'm not doing that for any other reason other than to help motivate people. And because I've been at the low numbers, and I'm getting into the the higher numbers, and I want people to understand it's possible. But yeah, I don't ever want people to really know who I am. I'd like to meet some of the people in the group and have a meet up, but
we're going to do that next year.
Yeah, for me, you never know who's watching, and I'm not a big fan of that.
No, I agree. And like I said, Alessio, I really, really appreciate you giving me your time tonight and the guys as well. And I know it's been massive, massive for everybody because a lot of people have been tuning in and watching, and there's been actually quite a decent amount of viewers. So I know this won't be the last time we do this. We'll definitely do this in the near future when we keep smashing it, mate. So I do appreciate you coming on. So thank you very much.
No problem, mate. Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a good job.
No worries, man. Enjoy the rest of your evening, mate. And thank you very much.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
No, see you in a bit, buddy. So just a quick one, obviously, before we finish up the stream, just want to give a massive shout out to Alessio. And I also want to give a massive shout out to the two lads in here as well, Jordan and Will. They tune in every single week. They smash it in the Discord. They don't stop. Will and me, Will's been in there half the time as me, and he's done 30,000 messages. I'm about the same. So he absolutely kills. It's a massive shout out to the boys. And a massive shout out to everybody that's tuned in as well. I can see every week the views are getting more and more. And obviously, we're going to keep trying our hardest to keep pulling more and more people on and obviously grow the YouTube. So massive, massive love to everybody. Thank you for checking in. Don't forget to like the stream. And obviously, we'll be back here again next Sunday. So thank you very much and peace.